Ruth Bradshaw, 6 Cooper Road, NW10 1BG.
You'll see in front of you volume 4.
So there's some.
You should see in front of you.
Yep.
And at page 1421.
Yes, that's the letter I wrote.
And is that the evidence that you wish to establish?
It is the evidence. I want to make one very minor correction or addition to it. That is that I'm not certain. Somebody just said that the MATS at the Wembley Centre for Social Care doesn't exist. If it does, it doesn't seem to have changed its name to Urgent Care Centre if you look on websites. On the other hand, if you look up the words urgent care on NHS choices, it lists all the walk-in centres under urgent care, and the only distinction is that they have a pair of footprints beside them instead of the words A&E. The one at CMH is not the only one. There is another 24-hour one at Hammersmith Hospital that's been mentioned, and one at St Charles's Hospital that is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. So what happens if you want urgent care at 9:30 p.m? So the problem is not just confined to the place that I wrote about. The description is very misleading for all of those, and if the A&E at Ealing closes, as was mentioned as a possibility this morning, then it will arise there and anywhere else where they decide to do the same thing.
Thank you. I wanted, in your submission, you set out an account of events in December that led to the sad death of a neighbour.
Yes.
I wondered, because although those of us who've got the document, then could you very briefly set out what happened?
Okay. I think he was 59. He lived in a house with his brother. I don't know precisely what the symptoms were, but they were enough for them to feel he needed to be in hospital. It was at a time when ambulance services were pretty stretched, and the brother put him into a cab and took him to Central Middlesex Hospital and took him into the urgent care centre. I'm not certain whether the initial symptoms were an asthma attack. I only have this from other neighbours because I naturally do not wish to question the surviving brother, who hasn't blamed himself for doing the wrong thing, and I don't want him to. So he's said very little to me about it, and I've heard it indirectly from, I think, 3 other people. But anyway, at some point while he was in the urgent care centre, he stopped breathing. And what I've heard was asthma attack, but that it may not have been. And the staff there weren't quite sure what to do. They couldn't get at the right equipment. I think they actually phoned Northwick Park, but they ended up phoning for an ambulance, and the upshot of it was that he wasn't breathing for 15 minutes before he was revived, and that he was then admitted to a hospital. I'm not sure whether it was Northwick Park, and he died there 2 weeks later, having been, I think, extensively brain damaged by not breathing for 15 minutes. And it was a great shock to all the neighbours, because he'd seemed a reasonably fit man. He was actually the youngest of a set of brothers. And basically, talking to several neighbours, as I said, it was obvious that nobody really understood the difference between the urgent care centre that was now at Central Middlesex and what it had been like when the A&E was in the next door room and you could get passed through in a couple of minutes. None of them knew basically they didn't understand the difference between urgent and emergency. These are normal people. They weren't second language speakers that I spoke with. The man who died was an English family, lived in Willesden all his life. But I think he left school at 15, and they did unskilled and semi-skilled jobs, mainly involved with driving heavy vehicles. And the others I spoke with were either English or Irish, again, mother tongue English speakers. But urgent and emergency sound incredibly similar. And although there'd been all this publicity that all the nerds here, like myself, had read, and we all knew what had happened. We'd also, because we are the sort of people who read every word we pass, we'd seen the notices on the bus stops and things like that. Most people blank these things off. They don't even read the Brent magazine, which goes to every home. It goes straight into the recycling bin in many places, and if it doesn't go to landfill. And that is an attempt to tell everybody. But when you look at the fact that the number of people who go to Brent Connect meetings, local neighbourhood watch meetings, meetings like this, CCG consultations, is a tiny, tiny fraction of the population, and that local news does not news that is as local as this does not get well reported on the televisions that most people watch, and that very few people now read the local paper, which also has reduced its news coverage, though it did, to do it justice, it did cover the A&E changes in quite a lot of detail, but very few people read it. So the point is not that you need to put out more means of publicity for people to blank off. The point is that the words used have to be unambiguous to the most basic speaker of English. They have to be words that a 10-year-old could understand, because even a 10-year-old can take somebody to hospital or call an ambulance in an emergency.
I think we understand the point entirely.
Yes.
I think one of the things you would ask the commissioners to do when they do their report is to highlight the example you've given as a clear example of how these terms need to be strictly made different so that ordinary people can understand that there is obviously a difference between urgent care and accident and emergency.
Well, it mustn't be called urgent care. I suggested going back to minor accident treatment centre or minor ailment treatment centre, or as in Edgware, walk-in centre. Any of those, I think people understand that if they go in there, there isn't going to be a consultant or someone who knows how to revive them when their heart and breathing has stopped.
Thank you very much.
Can I indicate that you've very neatly taken me through every single question I was going to ask you, so I don't need to ask them for you, so thank you for helping me out. I don't know if the commissioners have any more questions, but I'm most grateful.
Just add one point, because it does flag up an important thing about ambiguity. And we had this morning a discussion about what was going to be in a local A&E, and a debate in which nobody could define what was going to be in it. It doesn't appear to be agreed yet. But a local A&E could be as confusing as an urgent care centre.
Yes, I
do think clear language that is unambiguous, that people can understand what services they're going to get inside is very important.
Yes.
That up.
When I saw that, when I heard that mention of local A&E, I did actually make a note of it, but it wasn't with my other notes. That I was appalled. It's either an A&E or it isn't an A&E. If it can't revive you when you're apparently dead, it isn't an A&E. Thank you.